Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It is Thursday, and we are finally getting this show in. It's been one fraught with unusual weather. So we're here today, and it's my honor to introduce everyone. To everyone, you've seen him in the chat rooms, but now you get to see him in a live environment. Joe Sapiens, how are you doing?
Greetings, people.
Good, good, good. So good to see you, my friend. It looks like it's a bright, sunny day there.
It is.
And I know where you live at, so we're finally getting it. I know yesterday we were almost like we were in two different realities. Because
Pretty much.
yeah, you're just literally up over the other side of the continental line there. So it's so good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you on the internet as well. Now, pardon my speech. It is difficult to speak. Where I do not have the vocal means of communication, as you well know, I communicate best by the written word.
That is very powerful, Joe, is that, you know as well on my shows, is that the written word is where the power comes from.
And anyway, it does. I got a thought on that. I don't know if I can go into detail at the moment. It's complicated.
Yes, most things are, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's like a puzzle, but the thing is like I'm looking at a jigsaw puzzle that was only 10 pieces, and then when I went to touch the piece, it went to 1,000 pieces. I'm going, wait a minute.
That's kind of why I have my document going, is so that first I can identify the fundamental principles and the fundamental boundaries of an argument, because if those fundamental boundaries are not set down, then the whole argument will collapse.
Yes, absolutely. Interesting that you brought that up. I'm writing my book right now, and I was just in the rhythm. It's coming in. I was writing about that very fact about our species, is that it's my contention, Joe, and I think your manifesto is going to be well received on this. I believe we're in the midst of a crisis as far as sapiens are concerned. I think that there's good evidence that shows that if we don't begin to do something different, the evidence says that we are most likely on the collapse side of the equation.
About that, I have foreseen this human problem in my past, and I've dealt with personal matters similar to that, individually, that is. And in such a situation, it's a make or break. You gotta go all in on what you believe in and what you know. And if you are not prepared, probably that make or break moment will inevitably go into the breaking of the people.
I agree. I just want to say hello to everyone. Joe, as you can see, we've got a full house building in here. Just hello to all the moderators. Thank you. And all the other folks that, this is a conglomeration of light beings, of great thought beings. And Joe, I happen to think that you're one of those. And without any further ado, because I want to make the most of the time we have here, I want to go ahead and pull up your manifesto. And I just thought that we might just kind of walk through it together, because this is quite a document. And so let me, if I may, how did this come to you?
It is a combination of the seeds that people have shared to me. I get it from people, non-fiction materials and fiction materials, and most of it is just my personal inspiration based upon those seeds.
I love that. I love how you describe that. Isn't it so true in our walk of life? We often receive many of the seeds of those beings that we interact with and pass with.
Indeed, we do.
Kind of brings a whole kind of perspective on the pine cone, the cone of life. Just saying.
And there is more to that than you may know.
Well, as I have meditated on that, it gets really deep, because within every kernel of the cone itself is that there is a live kernel within that can only be, how should we say, activated when the outer husk has been burned off. I have a feeling that means something. So
anyway, let's get going.
Let's do it. So chapter 1, you introduction. So I'm just going to keep this up so people can actually read it for themselves as we comment on this. You want to make your commentary on it? I'd love to hear how this came about. I love the foundation, by the way.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Now I've got it pulled up here. So can you see it on your screen?
Yeah. I got my own copy from my personal computer up here. So, yeah, as for the introduction, since I just wanted to get right into the meat of the subject without a delay, I went straight to the point as to how people approach a question of any kind. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Those are the basic principles, or the basic, the basic foundation of a question. And so that's how.
I love how you put it in here. The cause of a question is to know oneself, as you said, until the members of the local community as to have an appropriate purpose. And it's true. I mean, I think individually for all of us, it's like, all right, so what's my purpose? Why am I here at this point, this time? And as you said in the point that I put it at, this specific place and time.
Yeah, and that's why I intentionally constructed the sentence in that way. Is if a single word is missing, then the context will be, it will fall apart.
Yeah. And again, as I said, this document, folks, and I don't know if you want to make this available to everyone, Joe. It's your call, but it's a fabulous read, folks. I love how you said right here, one is emotionally motivated to actively search for fellowship and compassion as to prevent an isolative and unforgiving existence that is complete social withdrawal.
About that, spoiler alert, that is the first problem that the source had in the beginning. That's the first problem that the source had.
As I read this, and I've read this several times, is that I began to think about this, and we can't remember our birth. We can't remember the conversations we had to ourselves prior to our births. And as all of us are born into this death cycle, I don't call it a birth cycle, it's a death cycle. If it wasn't a death cycle, then there would be no such thing as death. But anyway, I digress. The point is that when we face death, Joe, isn't that what really scares us the most, is the fact that we would be alone and isolated with no fellowship?
And that's part of it. The other part is it's the classic fear of the unknown, is
Sure.
because we have forgotten what is on the other side, and we have a natural fear of what we do not know. But in actual context is that we forgot, and that's the whole purpose of this death cycle. To a certain part, we are needed to forget our infinite power, has to minimize ourselves, and so that we may, since we do not have a beginning or end, and since in the spiritual state of being, we do not have conflict, we do not have pressure, we cannot die. An immortal being has to have a feel of the opposite of itself to, in a way, appreciate itself more.
Interesting. As you were talking, Joe, I got this idea that we as gods, in order to truly appreciate and I'll just phrase it this way, I know how to do this, the spark of the divine that we possess, is we purposely put ourselves into experience death.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I saw, my friend. I saw great beings, minds, thoughts that they have to experience what death is and understanding in what the complexity of life brings. I mean, so anyway.
Think of the old philosopher saying, "There is no good without the bad. There is no dark without the light," and vice versa.
Mm.
Each appreciate one another. Each judge one another when there is comparison.
Yeah, yeah, and it leads right into your next part of this is, and this is the key word I walked away with, was awareness.
Yes.
And awareness of consciousness, I can't find any end to it.
No.
What that which I got will only bring awareness of the awareness aware of. So you're getting it's true. It's truly my life.
Yeah.
Anyway, so to continue to move on here, the ancient word, and I'm just going to read this for next part. The ancient description of the word outcome is known as the fruit of something. So by common sense, the fruit outcome of knowledge may be translated as awareness and understanding of subject. To have a deep, the personal awareness and understanding of a subject. There are many subjects that I am completely unaware of.
Yeah.
Nuclear science, for instance. I have awareness of that word.
To not have personal awareness is called naivete.
Excellent. Bravo. Is it not? That's the best. That's one of the best descriptions I've heard of that word. I'm going to have to remember that.
And there was a part that I was going with this paragraph that I left out, which was the fruit of knowledge according to the context of good and evil, and to that part, to have a personal awareness of the standards that are good and bad, and that's fruit is not a physical form, but a state of mind.
Yes, yes. I'll share this with you, Joe. As I was getting ready this morning, years and years ago, I had a client, the Smithsonian Institution. Anyway, I got a chance to go into the Museum of Natural Art, Gallery of Art, and there was a mural that was painted, and it was called "The Journey of One Soul." And the first mural showed a young baby coming in his raft on his river. His raft was full of gold, treasures, and all was fine. The next one shows him in the mid part of life fighting wars. There's arrows coming in. The third one shows him as an old man, but the river never stops. And what he has gained was those things of life that made him truly rich. Awareness.
Here's a good bit for you. To have awareness is better than having material possessions.
Mm. If our species would only get that. Existential relativism. That is
Relativism.
Relativism. Thank you. It's a humdinger of a word. It's not one that many people, I don't even know, or even think about.
That, yeah, and that's the theme for the next chapter.
Well, I'm going to read this if I could, because I think it really helps set the whole chapter here. It says a purpose for an individual or community is determined by an intention to manifest a subjective reality as an objective reality. Two different realities. One is subjective, one is objective. And again, I think sometimes people don't know the difference.
Yeah, it's all they are confused about what is and what is not. They are confused about the standards. That's the problem. Confusion on the standards.
On the standard. I love that. Anyway, objective reality is the totality of observable things and the discernible environments, while subjective reality is the totality of abstract experiences in ideal environments according to one's own perceptions and preferences. Both realities are malleable by consciousness into an all-inclusive reality. Holy crap. That is so freaking deep, my friend.
And the purpose as to why I'm going deep is so that I can have control of my circumstances. The strongest control that I can have.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, that's what every individual seeks. Anyway, I continue. A subjective reality will not be as an objective reality unless there is a commitment to deliberate and diligent.
Deliberate. It's
deliberate.
Yeah.
Okay, deliberate and diligent actions. Alternatively, irresponsible decisions and actions will cause an unwanted situation. A dissatisfied person with the current condition, whether or not the individual has participated in creating their situation, can take advantage of opportunities to create and establish an ideal setting. Even difficult or well-established circumstances can be changed to at least be similar to the intended goal. I like that. That's a very strong principle, by the way, in setting goals.
Yeah.
I love it. Heck, I'll just go on. It said the quality of a circumstance, but a circumstance determines how much effort is required to initiate change. I just want to stop right there. You see, I don't know if many people really have the understanding, Joe, that in order to affect change, it has to go ahead.
They must be aware of the details concerning the circumstance. Here we go back again to awareness.
And if I can expound on that, all right, let's say we have a situation where you want to change something in your life. There was a time, Joe, when I would just simply approach it and just simply say, well, I'm just going to go forth with the thought of the intent of beginning to change this. But as I began to think more and more about affecting change, I was drawn to the fact that there's a whole minutia of other things that are directly connected to that which I am looking to change.
Yeah, and that's another problem that people have. They do not see the invisible connections that must be cut for a person to have a to have control of whatever problem that they have.
My friend, you are bringing forth great revelation on this one. I mean, that right there, you could write a book on. How many people, Joe, do you think are aware of the invisible connections that they're not even aware of that is influencing the circumstance that they're in right now?
Very few people have that state of consciousness. Very few, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes. I think it's the woes of our day. It's just that. Investigate and experiment so that every objective and subjective factor is meticulously identified and is completely understood.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, I remember when I was we all learning algebra. It was no longer simply that I could put 1 + 1 to equal 2. I have to explain why 1 + 1 = 2. Most people don't want to do that. And I love how you use the word meticulously. That word means, when I hear that word, it's always, I get the idea that I'm sifting fine flour.
Yeah.
You know. So again, I don't think most people, I don't even think they get beyond that. Anyway, I'll continue. I love this. This is, I told everyone this was a good document. Okay. Be aware of, let me see, where did I left off? Okay. Explore an environment or circumstance. Always question any explanation and observe the character of a person. Be aware that any action or indirect influence will have an appropriate result. If a situation, go ahead.
Indeed.
Indeed. If a situation forces an immediate decision, then memory and experience is the default reference. Wow. Love it. Just love it. Then memory and experience is the default reference. That's what we call knowledge, isn't it? And it's one of the things that our species cannot seem to pass on to the next generation.
Oh, about that, the first generation must, they must work actively to share what they know to the next generation. Take the concept of, I forgot the name, but I think it's called the marathon race, where one person gives the stick to the next one.
Relay.
Oh yeah, that's it. Relay race. That's what we gotta do to the knowledge. We gotta keep it going. If it does not, then the cohesion of a society and a person's control of their own circumstance, well, crumble.
It does. It does. And in fact, Joe, isn't that the goal of the transhumanists, is to basically reduce consciousness down to the ability of circuitry onto a silicon wafer or whatever the next one is going to be?
Or that's what they think that we are. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what I'm thinking as well. That's what they think. It's like, it's like you go into a haunted house, you never know what to expect, but it's supposed to be scary. I'll continue. I'm loving this. This is great. Hesitation and a temporary lack of conviction regarding an event or an outcome is a common human behavior. Isn't that so true? How many catastrophes, how many bad decisions have we made when we knew instinctively the right decision, but we hesitated, and that temporary lack of conviction ended up biting us in the proverbial butts?
Yeah, and that's the same behavior that even I have done.
Guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, let's all be honest. We all have to, this is how you can tell who is telling the truth, is like, well, who hasn't done this? Raise your hand. And everyone's waiting for that one hand because, you're lying. Anyway, one must personally consider all variables before establishing a stable circumstance. The mental process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through independent thought, well, that eliminates about 70% of the population. Personal experience and the senses should be used without restriction. Wow, without restriction. I love that. One must also oversee their own perception, sensations, notions, and intuition. For cognition is the means to initiate an event so that subjective circumstances and realities may be manifested into objective reality. This is where my decades of Bible study, the thing I love about the scriptures in Hebrews 11:1, calling those things that be not as though they are. That's what you just said there.
Yeah.
Calling those things that be not. And that gets back to science, Joe, that we know that at the beginning of the 20th century, with Einstein and the other groups, science went off into a different direction and left the ether, the spiritual component, up for grabs, is basically what they did, right?
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes, unfortunately. Each person is a universe unto themselves, and in each possible manifest a unique universe. Each universe may be as tangible as this current objective reality. Oh, this is deep again. Since multiple conscious entities exist, no one individual is able to completely manifest their own subjective reality as an objective reality. Inconveniences against a complete manifestation are not necessarily inconvenient. Imagine if only one person, me, existed without another person within and throughout infinite space and time. Oh, this is good. For this reason, the all-inclusive reality exists. How did you come up with this, the all-inclusive reality? I've never heard that term before.
It's basically the multiverse.
Okay.
And so it basically takes in everything, every possibility. That's what the all-inclusive reality is because it includes everything, every possibility.
Yeah, as you just described could be easily translated into infinity. I mean, I don't know how you could ever personally ever live an all-inclusive reality. Wow.
Exactly this way. Since we exist without beginning and end, since we are are capable of doing infinite possibilities, so too can realities be.
In fact, I was listening to Alan Watts, and he said, what would happen if God got bored? He would create a life like this. Of
And
infinite...
that's exactly what I just had.
Oh, you see, my friend, you are a true gift to humanity. Okay, so for now, the convenient purposes of designation, humanity has given the all-inclusive reality the name the multiverse. The nature and the state of the multiverse is a amorphous, interconnected network of occurring interactions within an infinite number of possibilities. And when I keep on hearing of this, I think of Data. You remember on Star Trek Next Generation?
As a matter of fact, I have the complete series behind me.
Well, and that's what I that's the mental image I got, because you have to be having an aware of consciousness that would be, you would have to be able to transcend. And I think we can do it. I mean, the fact that you and I are having this discussion and the amount of people that are watching this and will watch it shows that we have already bridged that impossibility.
That is a part of the spark of divinity.
Yeah. Yes. 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 It says, from the perspective of everlasting multiverse, no person or situation is meaningless. Oh, isn't this is what I like. Everything has a reason to exist, and life must prosper regardless of a circumstance. If we could just apply that foundation to the fabric of each of our realities, Joe, I think we could probably do away with ever the need to accumulate wealth, as to be more important that we completely share the wealth.
Yeah. Although in a certain dark side of things, perhaps the greed is a part of being aware that material possessions are not it's not important to an infinite being. What is important to an infinite being is each other. That's the most important thing.
I would agree with that. Everything has a reason to exist and must prosper regardless of a circumstance. I love that. Each person has a unique cognition. I love that. A unique cognition, that always says, I understand who I am.
And the way that I think is different to what you think.
Yeah.
And what you think is different to another person here on the channel.
I agree. I was in meditation one day and the thought hit me. I am a soul of one, but a spirit of many.
A spirit of many possibilities.
Yeah, I'm a soul of one, but a spirit of many. My spirit guide was talking to me that day, and it's still one that's profound. It's in my head. I can't get it out. Anyway, each person has unique cognition, personalities, opinions, and abilities. For that reason, one solitary being is but a single part of a community. Thus, the totality of life, human or not, forms a complex relationship so that all life may continue to prosper together. Nothing and nobody in subjective or objective reality is absolutely identical. An environment will change with or without external influence, thus providing a variety of environmental challenges. And the totality of reality, subjective or objective, will provide a sense of tangibility and abstract expectation. For whatever quality is weird, imperfect, and distinctive about every individual and environment, they are the intriguing and awesome wonders in all of existence. Brother, I got to tell you what, that's poetry. That's just poetry. That's all I got to say. When I read this, I think about those who have entered into that place of called despair. And I think it's probably the root cause, Joe, of so much of our society's woes is the fact that I think people, they just don't understand how important they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently read of when you begin to see suicide in children, how does an 8-year-old commit suicide? And it's becoming much more prevalent in our society. And when I wrote these words here, when you read them, I wonder how much would change if every person was taught from the moment that they could have cognition of thought, just how special and unique they are, that they have a gift that needs to be shared with the others.
And if they don't share it, the world would not be in a better circumstance.
I agree.
The world needs as much people as it can.
You have a beautiful, beautiful spirit, my friend. And thank you for sharing this with us. I've wanted to get you on for months now, and this was the right time. I think that everything has its time, and this is one. I'll continue reading. Chapter 3, Beliefs. A self-evident reality or an irrefutable connection of factors may inspire an unfaltering emotion of acceptance and confidence in someone or something. If a preposition is supported by reality and facts, then a belief connected to the idea is considered to be objectively justified. Wow. Opinions are applied to a context with or without appropriate experience and knowledge. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the definition of opinion. It's between ignorance and knowledge. That's what an opinion is. Way to go, my friend. An explanation or a justification may be quickly accepted if it effortlessly conforms to a preconceived opinion or a biased perspective. Therefore, prejudice-based faith will exist in relation to one's own perception and cognition. Absolutely. A person can be stubborn to be loyal to a personal beliefs and impressions, even though reality and rational judgment may indicate to the obvious contradictions or a lack of realistic information.
There's a word to that. What is the word? It's delusion.
Delusion.
Yeah.
And this just brings back a rush of so much other confirmation of other information. In fact, I think, Joe, what you've done here is that you've helped define, I think, part of the symptoms that we as a culture and a society are facing today.
Now that we have identified the problem, now we can fix the problem.
Yes. Yes. Use caution, for preconceived faith or descriptions of dubious quality may misrepresent realistic facts. Yeah, I think the CIA got a hold of that one. I mean, yeah. A prejudiced belief can influence expectations concerning any subject of one's attention. Consequently, the mental processes of cognition will be misled during the formation of a sensible judgment. I could put this into a whole new sales course. Judgment is the process of regarding, understanding, and interpreting subjective and objective knowledge through critical thinking. This method is a process of cognition as it is employed to solve a problem as to create a stable circumstance. I love that word stable. Most importantly, it will be used to objectively evaluate an issue in order to make a very critical decision. Refusing to analyze an explanation or an opinion with critical thinking will allow cognitive dissonance and superstition to exist in a person's mental process. Wow, wow, wow. Joe, I think you've done it here again. This is a document you just can't simply read the first time. It's one that you have so eloquently defined the problem that most people encounter in doing exactly that, critical analysis.
And here is another thing for you that could help. In a religious establishment, all the principles are made to be vague, and they're made to be unquestionable as to influence a person's way of thinking and a person's expectations.
Yeah.
Thing like that.
Well, indeed. I mean, that's a primary problem with most people, is that perception is never balanced with expectations.
Yeah.
One is all going to be greater than the other. You're either going to perceive that the expectation is either going to fail or it's going to exceed the perception. And then the problem is you have the other side of that equation is disappointment.
Mm-hmm. What we need is balance. If we can balance that, then even if our emotions can be swayed one way or another, the balance of perception and cognition will allow a person to make a quick recovery.
That's profound. Joe, I contend that the problem with grief is that grief can become addictive, and once it's becomes embedded into the thought process, there are some people who never recover from grief.
There's a problem with that. Grief is supposed to be attached to a genuine loss, but if it becomes addictive and if people can rely on it too much, then the appreciation of that emotion goes down.
Mm-hmm. I always tell people the thing you have to equate with grief, it's supposed to be brief.
Yeah.
Just
grief, not grief.
Just move right on along. All right. So Biased conclusions are used in conjunction with objective connections to justify an idea, as is a part of a causation and reality. Religious practices and cultural systems based on that belief are then acted out with purpose as to manifest their subjective reality as an objective reality. Oh, wow, well, this is, we go on for days on that one. Therefore, groups of people who share the same interests create communities and movements. The objective of a movement is the advancement of religious, political, social, and intellectual thoughts for the idealistic society. All principles of a movement is administered with complete faith in the promises for significant purposes and respectable circumstances. Establishments use their own supporters of cognition to sustain credibility and group consensus. I was just recently watching one of the things on the Church on Scientology, and the appeal that particular belief mindset attracted, and you laid it out right there. This is how every religion starts.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't need an individual, factual, mythological, or historical. Doesn't matter. People don't need that. They just need the thought.
Yeah, and again, that's problematic. And the beliefs can be as persuaded one way or another as the puppet masters want things to go.
Yeah. Joe, I just got to tell you, this is just a phenomenal document, and you need to make it a book is what you need to do. That one right there is any debate on religion would meet this as a meat grinder, because no religion can stand in the face of the premise of this argument. It falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
People naturally change their perception to conform to the opinions and explanations of a majority, or a person may conform to a popular movement. Whether or not realistic knowledge can support an explanation is of little importance. An individual will commit to influences from culture, philosophy, religion, politics, education, laws, business, and the local community. Notions and premises may or may not be convincing to another person's own extent of cognition and perception, or one is willing to be loyal to an establishment or a premise regardless of any contradictions in the fundamental principles. Even with the chance of irrefutable evidence against a belief, the conflicting idea may be resisted. People will go as far as blatant denial to avoid an uncomfortable truth or an opinion that will challenge personal beliefs. Knowledge that is disruptive to the constructed reality will be attacked and rejected. If anyone has a conflicting idea, usually against a religious, academic, or political establishment, then the explanation may be discredited or restricted from full disclosure. A probable obstacle, such as independent thought, will be suppressed if it is deemed inappropriate.
This document just might be the fruit of knowledge of good and evil that God did not want Adam and Eve to have. If and they did have it, then God basically kicked them out because they could not conform anymore because they had this.
Well, and that's interesting because, tomorrow we're going to be talking about, in fact, we're going to break it off here. I hope you can come back because we'll pick this back up. Will you come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back eventually.
Oh, I think this is.
Yeah, I'm back.
Well, this last thing was just, yeah, yeah, there's just so much that I can talk on this, and I want to. This manifesto really begins to break down for me, Joe, is the fact that this that you've written is, it's like an emergency medical manual for our species. It's not long, it's not complex, it's deep, way deeper than I think most people could comprehend. And I think it's worthy of just doing a complete read-through. So if you're up for that, so am I.
Yeah. Let us come back another day when you are prepared.
well, I think we're prepared. It's this one here is just, I mean, as we get closer to the hour on this one, it's empowerment is important for an individual to control one's own purposes in circumstances. And that is so true in so many cases. One must constantly strive to improve skills and abilities in addition to the active expansion of accessible knowledge. The perception of reality may change as knowledge is increased. Isn't that the fact? I mean, again, the notions of a belief may be verified or refuted depending on the quality of practical knowledge. Analyzing data and evaluating circumstances with a developed, insightful perspective will indicate empirical evidence rather than generally accepted truthful explanation. I'm sorry, when I see the thing on that, I laugh because, you could have on one hand say this is an apple, and on the other hand, you can say that this is an orange, but you don't have an orange or an apple in either hand. Further, a mature intuition may reveal misguided intentions, of which will be the disadvantage in regard to human rights. And be confident to responsibly exert earned abilities and judgments for a healthy circumstance, regardless of one's immovable confidence in an idea about someone or something. The fundamental propositions of any system must be credible when challenged. An intellectual establishment, a religious establishment, and a news media could be tested for accuracy of their information. Well, you know what happens to that? You end up dead. It's like I saw a movie like that. Exactly. A change of thinking with some guidance towards independent thought is a crucial process. However, greatly altering any person's capabilities or manipulating what they believe in can cause problems. We have seen that forced or greatly accelerated changes will disrupt a proper mental impression. Free will is the prime objective in regards to cognition. As such, an individual has the inalienable right to view reality in a subjective and objective manner as one deems appropriate. Holy crap. That right there could have a whole nother book. I mean, that challenges in many cases the whole construct of today's religion, political process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Well, this has been fun. I don't know how, I haven't seen what's been going on in the chat room, but folks, this is deep. This is deep. And I just thank you again, Joe. This is just amazing. Is this what you do a lot, is contemplate the condition of man?
Well, since I do not have a job because of my disability, all I can do is contemplate, read books, and do some other small things, although I spend most of my time on video games.
I can understand that. Well, I don't see you in any way disadvantaged. I find you to be remarkably refreshing mind. Your thoughts are thoughts of a different plane, of a different existence. And I hope people will get a hold of this and really digest what you have written. Your remarkable mind, my friend.
I wanted to share it as well, but I am certain that there are people out there that would they would excuse me, obstruct this material from getting out, because as you know, if it could get out, then it would turn over the whole matrix.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what, I'll help you. We'll get this put into an ebook. You know, when we'll have someone actually can do the proofreading on it and what have you. And I think you ought to make this one available. This is definitely one for deep thinkers. It's not for the uninitiated, although it's a beautiful wake up call to an uninitiated mind for sure.
Yeah, that's why I spread it with wisdom, is because it can cause problems to the uninitiated.
Well, we're at a point now, my friend. We have to begin to shake up the cognition of humanity.
Stir the pot.
That's what I say. Stir the pot. Joe, thank you, my friend. We'll have you back on. I want to go ahead out and let people, we're on chapter 4, and I said we're about halfway through, I think, right? I think that's what I said. Yeah. So you and I'll email and we'll get you back on here. In the meantime, people, let Joe know your thoughts as well. Joe, do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
I haven't done that.
Okay, that's cool.
I do have an email. Could you put that in the?
Yeah, you send. I've got that, and I'll put it in the description. Sure. Yeah. Just be prepared. Patrick did that the first time. So that's all I got to say. Let's see. Yes, Lois, I'll give everyone the link to Joe's email. And then, Joe, if you want to send this out, you can. And it'll be a great opportunity for you to meet a lot of good people here. I appreciate the fact that, Joe, of your belief in yourself. I see you as a beautiful, beautiful soul. And I love your mind. And I think that you're a gift. So that's just how I see it.
Thank you for allowing me to be on stage of this prestigious group.
Joe, we're all the same, my friend. I'm learning from you, and it's a lesson for all of us, folks. You never know enough that you can say, well, I don't need to read that, or I don't need to give this my attention. But that's when you're going to find out you're going to cheat yourself. And Joe, I just thank the powers to be, the infinite being, that your spirit, it continues to soar, my friend. And I'm humbled and honored to have you on. So we're going to do it again.
Thank you. All right, let's get going before things forget.
All right, folks. Send him your support. I will, when I repost this, I'll put his email in there. Send him emails of support. And listen, we're a strong community. And Joe, you're an example of the strong, the tensile. The word I'm looking for is tensile strength. I don't think that we can be broken, and this type of knowledge helps that.
Yeah,
I think so.
I've got some good as spirit guides.
All right, folks. This is the man that we want to get to know. Thank you, Joe. Thank you to everyone out there. My friend, you be safe. You be good out there in the beautiful part. It's to send that beautiful sunshine this way. All right. Joe, would you like to say anything to the audience as we leave?
Back to the world.
I love it. All right, folks.
See you guys.
All right.